Welcome to Will Drafting, the basics, and my name's Julie Bell. Let's see what we're going to cover today. We're going to start off with a brief overview of what level of capacity we need to have to be able to make a will. We call that testamentary capacity. We're going to look at the various clauses that you might have in a will and the advice that you might give. And a will can contain 100 clauses. It can contain 1 or 2 clauses. We're going to deal with the appointment of executors and trustees. We're going to talk about pecuniary legacies, what they are, and we're going to talk about residuary gifts as well. We're going to cover the importance of taking thorough instructions. Unfortunately, will drafting is an area very ripe for negligence. And what type of questions you need to ask before you even start to think about what the will is going to look like, and before you can start to think about drafting. So we are going to look at clients' assets, what we need to be concerned about. Hopefully the client has a good picture of what their assets are. We're going to have a look at what owning property as joint tenants means, and we're going to have a look to see when and if we might need to sever the joint tenancy. We're going to have a brief review of your client care letter that you are sending out, hopefully to all your will-making clients. What is covered, what is not covered standardly within that client care letter. How simple should it be, and what are the risks in relation to that? And then finally, we're going to look onto how we sign or how we execute a will. And unfortunately, there are very strict formalities in relation to that. And what do we need to comply with so that we end up with a valid will at the end of the day? So to start off with, when we are looking at will drafting, I want to specifically look at items that are not included within the will, either standardly or they can't be included, and why that is important, and that we highlight that I'm doing this with your will, but all these assets aren't going to fall within the will and you need to make separate arrangements for them. So the starting point is property within a trust. So if I am a beneficiary of a trust, so that means I'm entitled to benefit from the assets held in the trust, when I make my will, those assets within the trust are not going to fall within the will. What will happen is the trust document, which tends to be a written document, will say when this person dies, when X dies, this is what happens to the trust property. So it's a separate thing, and the trustees of that existing trust are going to decide what happens if it's a discretionary trust, or they may have no choice with what happens. It might be set in stone and saying when X dies, then you divide it to A, B, and C.